After nearly a whole decade, Stranger Things has finally come to an end, closing out with some of the highest viewership numbers of any streamed drama in history. What began as a small-scale cult sci-fi mystery about the disappearance of one young boy in a sleepy suburban American town somehow ballooned into a global phenomenon. And then, in my opinion, it began to collapse under the sheer weight of its own narrative. Too many characters, too many plot threads, too much budget, and this guy
have already lost.
Ugh, we'll get on to Vecna later.
Oh, sorry! Oh, I'm sorry, don't hurt me, sorry!
And don't even get me started on the Russian subplots, which just take over this show for like no reason.
Everything works out, happy ending for everybody.
So join me in this video as I dissect what flipped public opinion upside down. Because seriously, this finale, this final season, has turned a bunch of people on the internet into raging conspiracy theorists. Conformitygate is an actual online movement, started by Stranger Things fans, convinced that a secret extra episode is about to drop. Type the show's name into TikTok or Instagram or any social media platform right now and you will be greeted with hundreds of videos of people claiming that a secret episode's on the way. They deliberately gave you an underwhelming finale because it's all part of Vecna's super secret plan.
Stranger Things Season 5 is getting a 9th episode.
There's a secret episode coming out, you won't believe it.
And it all adds up.
We might actually be getting something tomorrow.
And like, do I believe? Yeah, kinda.
It confirmed Conformitygate is real and the ending was all fake.
Oh well, that's all ancient history now.
And all of these videos, I can promise you, are categorically wrong. As a wise man once said,
I said I played these games before!
I remember this exact thing happening almost 10 years ago for the BBC Sherlock Season 4 finale. The entire fandom had become convinced that the show was so impossibly clever that the final episode of Series 4 was intentionally bad. A master plan cooked up by the genius mind of Stephen Moffat. Except, no, it was just an underwhelming finale. Even the latest season of Doctor Who, I was right there on the front lines saying it's a meta-narrative, they're deliberately writing this way, but the truth is, sometimes TV finales just suck. But what actually caused the Stranger Things bubble to burst? How could a show with so many dedicated people watching make so many people online this unhappy? Well, to answer that, we need to jump right back to the start. What made Stranger Things a popular show in the first place? Also, hi, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. We talk about movies, TV shows, ranking videos, loads of random stuff. You'll enjoy it. If you like this video, there's more to come, subscribe. Like so many huge franchises before it, Stranger Things is absolutely baked in intertextuality. The show doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's built out of echoes, callbacks, and visual shorthand that audiences are already familiar with. And I want to be clear, I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm not one of these people that's just going to dismiss it as a rip-off of other people's work, because it never really felt cynical. In the earlier seasons especially, you can tell that the Duffer Brothers genuinely loved the films and stories that they were pulling from. The references felt affectionate rather than just lazy. The influences are pretty obvious once you start looking for them. There's E.T. in Eleven's whole fish-out-of-water innocence and the idea of kids befriending something strange and otherworldly. Stephen King is literally everywhere. It gives the blueprint for a gang of misfit children facing a supernatural evil, while Carrie feeds directly into Eleven as the traumatized girl with dangerous, out-of-control psychic powers. And the darker horror imagery constantly nods to A Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, and The Thing. Franchises like Narnia or Harry Potter work in a very similar way, but for some reason never normally fall under the same criticism as Stranger Things. C.S. Lewis mashed together Greek mythology, Christian allegory, and fairy tale creatures, fauns, centaurs, witches, talking animals, into something that felt universal rather than niche. As I say, things like Harry Potter also did the same. When that kind of remixing is done with all of these classical ideas, it creates major mass appeal. It's almost like taking the best bits from a load of things that people already love, cooking them together, and sprinkling a whole dose of your own creativity into it. And that's exactly what the early seasons of Stranger Things achieved. By using familiar ideas, the show felt welcoming to a broad audience instead of catering only to hardcore genre fans. You didn't need to be a sci-fi obsessive to enjoy season 1. Your parents could watch it, your friends who don't usually like sci-fi could watch it, your next door neighbour could watch it. It was mainstream storytelling disguised as cult television. For a long time, that blend of recognisable iconography and character tropes being subverted made Stranger Things feel fresh and accessible. The problems began to come later, when the show started to buckle under the pressure of the sheer amount of characters, plot threads, and falling back on tropes that they used to subvert. I genuinely believe that if Stranger Things had stopped after season 2, it would be remembered as one of the best shows possibly ever. Back then, I genuinely thought this was the perfect ending. Those first 2 seasons built such a wonderful little universe and explored pretty much every meaningful avenue you could with these characters. The snowball scene is still one of my favourite endings to any show I've ever seen. Hopeful, emotional, bittersweet, everything wrapped up in this warm, satisfying way. And then the tiny hint that the Mind Flayer is still lurking out there in the Upside Down, but we'll never see it again. It's sealed off, but not completely gone. It left you wanting more, but not needing more. The story didn't need to continue here. But then it came back. Again, and again, and again. I love Back to the Future, but I don't want another Back to the Future movie. I don't want or need a Back to the Future 4. I think because of the runaway success of the show, it just never really knew when to stop. The tropes that they'd subverted so beautifully started getting, for lack of a better word, unsubverted. Steve, the cliché jock boyfriend, had been transformed into something genuinely interesting. He gets humbled, loses his social throne, and slowly becomes part of the kids' world. So the show basically went, okay, we'll get a new one. Enter Billy. But then, by the end of season 3, Billy's gone, so they wheel in another generic bully character. This guy, who I can't even remember the name of despite him appearing in every single episode of series 4. And when he inevitably dies, season 5 rolls around, and look at what we have here. Another generic jock bully character. The stock jock, if you will. I also refuse to Google this guy's name out of principle as well. If the show can't make me care about these characters enough to remember their names, like I watched this season like a matter of days ago, and I can't remember the guy's name. If the show's not going to make me remember his name, why should I Google it? The show never even gave me a reason to care. He literally shows up for the first 2 episodes, kicks Dustin, goes, "Ha, I'm a nasty bully," then never shows up again. He's not even in the epilogue. The show just falls back on these tropes like narrative comfort food. They boxed themselves in by making it about Hawkins, a small town. The more you add, the further you go from the original vision of season 1 and season 2. Another really clear example is Dr. Brenner. In season 1, he works as a proper grounded threat, and then he dies. He is dead. Season 2 cleverly subverts the evil scientist idea with Sam Owens, a government researcher who is actually a decent guy and wants to help the kids. A solid twist. But then season 4 comes back and goes, nah, just bring back Papa anyway. Dragging Brenner right out of the grave, and then when Brenner dies in season 4, they go, we'll get a new one who has a suspiciously similar haircut. But don't worry, they'll distract you. Look, it's the woman from Terminator. You know her, right? Just don't think about it. You know this character. Now, to be fair, I do want to add a caveat there. With her character, the similarity to Brenner is kind of the point, so I can't complain about it too much because the idea is that there will always be another Papa ready to swoop in, and Eleven would never truly be free of the cycle unless she removes herself, which is why she has to die at the end of season 5. But the whole Papa thing actually speaks to one of the show's other huge problems, which in a way is a nice problem to have. The characters are all too good to kill. Seriously, everyone who was campaigning for some huge plot twist death, who would you kill? Who could they actually take out of the mix without breaking the show? You kill one of the core kids, and suddenly the series is just mourning for weeks, and half of the cast has technically already died. We've seen Will die, and then come back. We've seen Eleven die, and then come back. We've seen Hopper die, and then come back. We've seen Brenna die, and then come back. We've seen Max die, and then come back. Meanwhile, the only characters who truly stay dead are the tropey disposable ones, the ones introduced at the start of a season and fridged by the end. Barb, Bob, Alexei, Eddie. You could almost tell, formulaically, who was gonna die in the season when they introduce a new likeable character at the start of a new edition. As the show went on, it began to feel like they were trying to chase the thing that made #Justice for Barb so special back in 2016. They kind of managed it with #Justice for Bob, but then Alexei, then Eddie. Don't even get me started on Eddie Munson fans. But to me it just feels hollow when we know that the main cast aren't in danger. Like, I don't actually feel anything when Eddie dies in season 4 because we know Dustin's not gonna die. There's also that point made by Steve in series 5, which is just bang on. Eddie didn't need to die. Like, his death doesn't really make sense. One of the reasons that shows like Game of Thrones worked so well is because everybody was in jeopardy all of the time. Need I say more than Ned's dead head? Or the Red Wedding? Anyone could die at any moment. That threat gave weight to every story beat. Stranger Things just can't do that. It's not just the deaths of the characters either though, everything just gets undone. Eleven loses her powers at the end of season 3. Hopper dies. The buyers move away. And then season 4 rolls around and the entire plot is getting the buyers back to Hawkins, Eleven getting her powers back, and rescuing Hopper from Russia, and basically bringing him back to life. So what was the point in moving them all in the first place? If it was to grow the characters and change them and set them up on new journeys, okay, nice. But throughout the course of season 4, there's so many characters, none of them get time to breathe, and their arcs barely change. All of these things are just happening to them, rather than feeling like a natural part of the story. With the exception of Eleven, she gets a couple of nice moments and full circle things with Papa. And here's where my opinion may be controversial. If you couldn't tell by now, I think that series 4 of Stranger Things was the breaking point. That's where this show went wrong. A lot of people point to series 3. No, it's series 4. It's not even series 5. The reason you may not like the series 5 finale is a direct result of series 4. But why do I say this? Season 5 honestly did its best under the ballooning weight of the story. Let's rewind quickly. Season 2 was, in my eyes, as I've said, a perfect ending. The storylines were tight, the stakes felt real, and the characters we loved got meaningful arcs. Then comes season 3, and honestly, this is where things start to wobble a little bit, but not too much. Kids sneaking through air vents in a mall in a tiny town to fight Russians. Come on, guys. I mean, people talk about jumping the shark. That was the moment that Stranger Things jumped the shark. Hawkins was a small town in season 1, beautifully captured by Hopper's line about that owl attacking a woman's head being the most interesting thing to ever happen there. But now everything is enormous, bombastic, huge. The stakes didn't feel personal anymore. And I feel like when you almost lose those soap opera-y elements to the show, that's when the general public starts to go a little bit off. Up until now, the show's success came from its simplicity, from its mass appeal, but during Series 4, it turned into a sprawling ensemble with ridiculously huge stakes, prison breaks, globe-trotting, multiple villains, and worst of all, no key one shared goal. It became like homework. There were so many plot threads and so many characters to remember. It almost felt like it was only catering to that niche online market of theorizers. And not to mention the insane episode lengths. Season 4 episodes are nearly 2 hours each. By the time it came out, sure, the pandemic delayed things, but the kids had aged enough that the classic Stephen King children-facing cosmic horrors thing was kind of starting to fail. The vibe was fading. The magic was swiftly disappearing. It was still fun, sure. Funny, nostalgic, entertaining, but the cracks were very visible. Season 4 really drags. It takes too long to build up any proper momentum, and by the end, the show had kind of lost its intimacy. But it wasn't actually that bad. I don't even hate Season 4. I rewatched it in preparation for this video, and it is by far my least favourite season of the show, but it wasn't terrible. Now, the only thing I do genuinely really dislike about Season 4 is Vecna. He is one of, in my opinion, the nails in the coffin that made people start to dislike this show. Not only in his first season, Season 4, we'll talk about his appearance in Season 5 later, but not only does he look stupid, I'm sorry, he does. Seriously, why does he spend half of the show standing around like this? There was just something weird about the design, because everything else in the show looks so expensive, so brilliant, movie-level quality. I just couldn't get on board with Vecna's appearance. Until Series 5. Okay, they fix it for that. He looks great in Series 5, but we'll get onto that later. I mean, I promise you the problem with Vecna is bigger than just his posture. His very existence as a character, for me at least, ruins the mystique and the appeal of the Upside Down. Stranger Things was at its absolute peak when we could actually have fun with it. I liked being able to theorise. Maybe it was a world after a nuclear war. Maybe it was some parallel dimension frozen in time. Will was taken for reasons we'd maybe never understand, possibly just by accident, possibly because the Demogorgon was hungry. There were fan theories everywhere, and half the fun was not knowing the answers. And I don't want to know. That's the point. In Season 1, we assumed there was just one Demogorgon, this silent, unstoppable creature from a realm we couldn't even begin to understand. Season 2 expands on that idea in a solid way, giving us a swarm of smaller Demogorgons, very much like the jump from Alien to Aliens. Same threat, bigger scale, but still pretty mysterious. These creatures couldn't speak. They had no grand ominous speeches, no huge master plan. All they did was cause chaos and destruction in an animalistic, unhuman-like way. But you still did have a somewhat sentient villain. The Mind Flayer always gave off the impression that it knew what it was doing, but we didn't understand. We as an audience aren't supposed to understand. It's something beyond our realm. Does the Mind Flayer even understand Will's calls for it to stop following him? Maybe the Mind Flayer's just curious about human life. If humans found a non-human, they'd investigate. Back then, the very existence of the Upside Down felt like a threat, a twisted reflection of Hawkins that looked familiar but deeply wrong. That allowed for some truly striking imagery, which just feels less and less special the more we see of it. The main villains really were the human scientists that accidentally unleashed the Upside Down and the Demogorgon onto this poor small town. They didn't understand it, we didn't understand it, it was a mystery that should never have been answered. Here's the harsh truth. There is no explanation for the Upside Down that will actually satisfy everyone. Leaving it to the audience's imagination is far, far more effective in my opinion. It's the same with other shows, like the question in the title of Doctor Who. Who is the Doctor? We don't know, we should never know what the Doctor's name is, because there is no answer to that question that wouldn't be underwhelming. Some mysteries work better when they remain as mysteries. The moment you try to define the undefined, it becomes underwhelming. Now there is a distinction here, because I feel like in the first 2 seasons of the show, the Duffer Brothers, they didn't want you to know. They weren't deliberately laying little clues for you to pick up on and theorise about. This was the world, you take what you want from it. But in later seasons, like season 4, they draw a point to that scene where Nancy's in the Upside Down and she's like, why is time frozen on the day that Will went missing? That is a question that the audience want answered immediately. They set it up as a question to answer, which I feel like was just the wrong approach. Leave these things as unknowable. They reference the movie Jaws quite a lot in their series Bible and in various interviews, and I can see why, because Spielberg realised that the less he showed of the shark, the more effective it was. Humans have an instinctive fear of the dark, fear of the unknown, fear of the uncanny valley, that weird liminal space sort of feeling invoked heavily by the Upside Down. But this dies when we've suddenly got a Freddy Krueger knockoff explaining the lore of the place he lives. He makes the Demogorgons feel so much less threatening. Even the threat levels of just being in the Upside Down got completely watered down as the show went on. In season 1, they're literally wearing hazmat suits whenever they go in there because it's probably toxic, it's probably this, it's probably that. And then cut to season 5, season 4, they're just chilling. There's no danger. They're just strolling around. There's no jeopardy in the Upside Down anymore. So after all of that whining, as you can imagine, going into season 5, I didn't have the highest of hopes. But you know what? I did actually enjoy it quite a lot. For the most part, I thought it was a really solid show. I feel like a lot of the places they went astray in season 4 got picked up on by the writers, by the creative team, and then reversed in series 5, but not reversed in a way that feels like it's clashing with its prior season. Episode 1 grounds the show and brings it back to its original feeling. It stopped being a nostalgia fest for the 80s and almost became a nostalgia fest of its own earlier seasons. Some would call it a cheap trick, some would call it self-indulgence, but whatever it was, it worked. It sucked me right back in. The annoying bullies trope gets subverted, kind of, almost immediately, where you're allowed to see how far these characters have grown. They're back in Hawkins, in the high school, the personal stakes feel like they're starting to return. It was genuinely quite nice to see how far the nerds have evolved from season 1. And as I mentioned, in season 4, the charm of like the kids v cosmic horror was fading. So the Duffer Brothers did the right thing by bringing in a couple of new kids, but they don't feel like disposable side characters because we focus on Holly Wheeler, who's actually accidentally been set up since season 1 to have a weird connection with the Upside Down. In season 1, she notes all the Christmas lights. In season 3, she clocks that there's something moving in the bushes. It feels like this was always the plan, which I'm willing to bet it wasn't. But Derek and Holly are genuinely good and enjoyable characters. Suddenly, the Stephen King, Goonies-inspired Spielbergian vibe, it's returning. And then, paralleling season 1, she, just like Will before her, gets taken by a lone Demogorgon. The music, the lighting, the dark comedy of the dad, Ted Wheeler, being absolutely useless. During all the chaos unfolding, it made for a brilliant sequence and gives all the characters one primary goal, because that's one of the things with season 4. They were all spread out, whereas now a kid's gone missing, just like Will. We've got to get the kid back. It's Mike's sister, it's Nancy's sister. Like, it draws it all together really nicely and sets off with a mission statement, a very clear, inciting incident. Karen getting slashed too gave real, genuine consequences. I mean, yes, Karen could have died, but as I said earlier, you can't kill off the mum of the 3 principal characters. That would just be too sad and derail the narrative. Episode 2 was fantastic as well. grounding the story back in Hawkins, binning off the stupid Russia subplot, which I haven't even complained about. I'll give you a mini rant now, but like, genuinely, while watching Series 4, it is a slog to get through all of that Russia stuff. It's so jumping of the shark, it's so silly, it's so ridiculous, and I am so glad that Series 5 comes around and they're basically just like, yeah, we'll forget about the Russia subplot entirely. Max being out of action actually felt like a consequence of the story as well. Deaths and injuries suddenly seemed to carry more dramatic weight than they'd used to. And I think this is something that people often forget when they call for character deaths. Shows shouldn't just kill someone off purely for shock value. If you're killing someone off, it's about the emotional effect on the characters left behind. That matters just as much as any arbitrary who's going to die this season decision. Volume 1 of Season 5 left with an absolute banger as well. Not only was it really well directed, like I loved that one long shot of them all, this is easily the best the show has been since probably Season 2, maybe on par with Season 3, I don't know. And Vecna finally looking threatening. Thank goodness, because it's a good performance from Jamie Campbell-Bower, like he's doing a good job. The look of Vecna was finally fixed. And also, Vecna actually wins. Like, at the end of Volume 1, he wins. His mission's beginning. And Will gets his powers. Boom, Demogorgons, etc. Like, oh, what a banger. But then Volume 2 happens. I don't have as much beef with Volume 2 as a lot of people online seem to, but it definitely kills the momentum of Season 5, at least a little bit. Half the scenes are just characters stood around while one person gives a, imagine that this mug is the upside down and this camera lens is Mike. Mike is upside down in the upside down. Imagine this perfume bottle is my car. We're gonna drive it into the upside down. It's like, okay, we get it, guys. Can we stop this? Like, every scene just has one of these ridiculous metaphors going on and on and on. The show even makes a fundamental error in trying to explain more about the Upside Down again. And it's like a wormhole, and there's this other place called the Abyss. And if I asked any casual audience member to explain to me what the Upside Down is, despite them spending about 20 minutes of screen time talking about it, I guarantee you they'd just go like, well, I don't know, it's like our world but upside down and it's scary. And that's all you need to know. We don't need these long drawn out explanations. No explanation would ever be truly satisfying. I do though have to give a quick shout out to the Nancy and Jonathan scene where they both think they're about to die. Two of the arguably less interesting characters suddenly get one of the best and most emotional moments in the entire show. It felt raw, it felt real, it felt impactful. I wouldn't change a thing about it. When they finally confront what they've been avoiding for years, what's been so apparent to us as an audience over the past 2 seasons, I also do not understand how so many people online were asking, was it a breakup scene? Were we watching the same scene? That was clearly a breakup. It's one of the best breakup scenes I've seen in a show. Screenwriter Russell T Davies talks about how when he realised he could do writing well was when, I think it's like a scene he wrote where 2 characters call off a marriage without once saying that they don't love each other. And it was giving me that sort of vibe. Like, you don't need them explicitly to say, I don't love you. Like, that's silly. That moment reminded me why I loved the series so much in the first place. Real, messy character drama in a crazy sci-fi horror setting. I don't care about the endless lore of the Upside Down. I don't need constant, elaborate plans being explained to me on whiteboards. I want to see the emotions of these central characters front and centre, which is exactly what this scene gave us. Just watch Season 5 Volume 2 and try and count in the background how many characters are just stood around with kind of nothing to do. Like, another example of this is Will's coming out scene. I don't hate the scene, but I do just think, like, why is Murray there? Like, Murray's just sort of chilling. I feel like it would have been far more impactful to have, rather than these like long shots and wide shots of everyone just stood around, have a quite personal close-up feel with Joyce, Will and Mike. Like, that's maybe a better direction for the scene, but also I get Will just wanting it out there. I haven't made my mind up on that scene. Let me know what you're thinking on it in the comments. So, overall, Volume 2 was fine. Just fine. I did also love the Steve and Dustin shouting match, like that was quite nice. But the finale, the hype was building. The online tension, the wait was crazy, but did it stick the landing, in my opinion? Well, I think it's about the best finale the show could give, considering the position that it had put itself in and the way it had built up in prior seasons or prior episodes. The finale pays off a lot of things as best as it can. By the end, there were simply too many characters for the finale to give them all satisfying screen time. Like, seriously, in the last episode, Erica and Mr. Clark show up for about 20 seconds, get presumably kidnapped by Dr. K and a group of evil scientists, and then don't show up for 2 hours until the epilogue where they're completely fine. Also, Robin's girlfriend just disappears. When an ensemble cast gets that big, fitting everyone in and making it feel 100% satisfactory is basically impossible, but I think given the sheer amount of characters they were working with, they did a pretty decent job. You can see that they tried to give everyone like a little moment to shine, like Murray blowing up the helicopter, or 8 dying, or Joyce with the axe. They try and give every character like a little spotlight moment to shine. One of the more bizarre production choices was having this finale tie in directly to the play. A play which the majority of the audience won't have seen. For anyone confused on what I'm talking about, Stranger Things: The First Shadow explores Hawkins and Henry Creel years earlier, giving extra context and backstory to Vecna and the whole upside down thing. And sure, you can still follow Season 5 and the finale without having seen the play, but once again it's that kind of homework thing. I shouldn't be having to do homework to appreciate the season finale. I've been a loyal viewer of the show since 2016. Like, I don't want to feel left out. All that does is once again push it into like these sort of convoluted, confusing fan theory circles. Now, to be fair as well, Vecna in this finale is by far the best version of Vecna we ever get. I've made it clear that I was against the character existing at all, but his handling here is far better. The design absolutely pops off, and having Mr. Whatsit as like a sort of second personality in his mind palace thing, it really helped give him a creepier, more human edge. I liked seeing a bit of his backstory too, and crucially, I liked that some of it stayed unexplained. We don't need to know who or what that scientist in the cave is doing. Why's he got the briefcase? What even is the thing in the briefcase? It's the right amount of lore. You get the gist, you get to see how Henry ended up with these powers, but you don't need it all explained, which is nice. Tying the show up full circle with Vecna's plan, taking kids to use as vessels because it's what happened to him as a child, creates a lovely circular payoff. It echoes Will being taken, it echoes Eleven's experiments, it echoes everything that the series used to care about, and it works. Seeing the kids that we saw in Season 1 grown up and saving other kids, cinema. But it does leave me with a couple of unanswered questions, because, as I mentioned, if you draw attention to something in the narrative with the intention of making people theorise about it, you've got to answer the question you set up. Why was the Upside Down frozen on the day Will went missing? Why did the Duffers make such a big deal out of Will's birthday being forgotten last season? And what happened to the military and Dr. K? Why don't we see them get a comeuppance? Like, I want to see Dr. K get arrested or eaten by a Demogorgon or like whacked round the face or something. I will say though, I think the finale played it a little bit too safe for my liking. Nothing really shocked me or blew my mind in the way that the show perhaps used to. The moment I was most invested was when Vecna tricks Hopper into thinking he's just shot 11. And honestly, imagine if that had actually happened. That would have been incredible. The reveal of the blood on the tank is one of the best sequences the show has ever done. It's pure dread, pure, like, oh god, Vecna's won. Hopper has just shot 11. But it only ends up being a vision and having little to no consequence. I just wish we'd had more of these moments where the villain genuinely seems to have the upper hand. There was something almost painfully tragic about the idea of Hopper being the one to kill 11, because he gives in to his own fear of losing her, which causes her death. It's almost a Shakespearean tragedy. Imagine if she'd actually died. I mean, it would derail the plot entirely, so maybe it's not a good idea, but just that moment where I thought, oh my god, 11's dead because of Hopper, that was insanely cool. I'll also admit something else may be controversial. I actually really liked the big final battle, with all the kids playing their part, attacking the Mind Flare, 11 doing her psychic powers against Vecna, Will using his psychic powers. I feel like everybody, well mostly everybody, okay sure, Hopper and Murray were on the reserves bench, but most people got their moment to shine in that scene. And Joyce being the one to deal the final blow and drop the only F-bomb of the show was lovely. People call the flashbacks self-indulgent when she's about to lop off his head, but I think they deserve a bit of self-indulgence. It's the final episode of one of the highest viewed shows of all time. Give them a little bit of credit. And then we come to the huge, probably most controversial moment. The death, or alleged death, of 11. I actually quite like it. I think the music choice was perfect, and the acting from everyone is genuinely stellar. It's a shame that Max didn't get more to say or do, considering how close those two were in earlier seasons of the show. That felt a little bit odd, but as I keep saying, in a cast this big, how'd you fit it all in? Her saying goodbye to Mike was genuinely lovely, and nearly brought a tear to my eye. Because that scene fundamentally taps into what the show has always been about. 11 represents the final loss of childhood innocence for the group. After all, Stranger Things, like Stephen King's It, is fundamentally about the loss of childhood innocence. It's a coming-of-age story where the kids we've followed slowly become adults. Will lost his innocence when he was taken, Dustin lost it when Eddie died, Lucas lost it when Max nearly died, and now it's time for Mike, the last man standing, to lose his. From day one, 11 is presented as this otherworldly fish-out-of-water character. Her powers, her awkwardness, her lack of normal social skills all represent the whimsy of childhood, the unstoppable feeling kids have before real life knocks it out of them. She is childhood. So an ending where Mike chooses to believe that she's still alive works beautifully. It shows that, yes, their childhood is forever over, but they'll carry it with them for the rest of time. The memories, the friends, the innocence that shaped them into who they are, that will stick with them, and that is a really neat and genre-in-keeping story to tell. Still, as much as I like that, and as pretentious as you can be analysing it, I can't help but feel sad for 11. Like, I know that's kind of the point, and it's up for interpretation. Did she die, or does she get this life off by the waterfalls? But I don't know, it's quite sad. 11 deserved better, but I suppose that's part of the whole tragedy. Maybe she does settle in that place with the waterfalls. I like not knowing. Keeping it ambiguous is probably one of the best decisions the show made. It feels bittersweet and open. It's that thing that season 2 did so well, where the story is over, and you want more, but you don't need more. We don't need to see any more of these characters. The epilogue was beautiful too. Mike watching a new generation of kids able to just sit and play D&D together in peace. A proper full circle ending. So, in conclusion, while not perfect, I think Stranger Things 5 did a fantastic job wrapping up a show that had ballooned out of control. It brought things back to Hawkins, brought the characters back to the small emotional problems that used to matter, it gave us beautiful character moments, and went out with a pretty big bang. Good job, Duffer Brothers. I do think this show will be remembered for a very long time as a very good show. Overall, I'd give the whole show probably an 8 out of 10. There's better moments, there's weaker moments, but it's a very strong package. If I were to rank Series 5 on its own, I'd give it probably a 7 out of 10. It's a pretty damn good conclusion to a show that it became almost impossible to end in a truly satisfying way. But what did you think? Am I an idiot? Is Vecna your favourite character? Let me know in the comment section down below, and as ever, if you did enjoy this video, please do remember to like, comment, subscribe and share. All of that really helps me out a lot. If you can, feel free to hype the video to boost it in YouTube's algorithm. More TV shows, news stuff, whatever, dropping on this channel. If there's a movie or show you want me to cover, drop it in the comments, let me know. Thank you very much for watching, hope you did enjoy, and goodbye.
Don't forget to click below and subscribe to the official Confused Adipose YouTube channel.
I will destroy you!
She's not seen a single episode.
No, I've watched your episodes.
Keep these sonic screwdrivers.
What else am I saying about the film? Don't watch this one.